When I was in my mid-20s, I think we had a band rehearsal at my home in my attic. I was the only non-Christian in the band, and one of the guys said, like at the beginning of the meeting, Martin, I just read 1 Corinthians 13. It just blew me away, the beauty, this poetry, how poetic this chapter. And obviously he was just struck by these timeless and powerful words that we have contained in this very special chapter 13 in 1 Corinthians. I would say it's probably one of the most beautiful and famous texts in the whole Bible. And often when you attend a wedding, you would hear this chapter being quoted in the context of this love relationship and the love that is supposed to be on display in this very special relationship. And if we imagine this letter to the Corinthians as one big chunk of meat, I want to say then this piece here is kind of the fillet in the whole letter to the Corinthians. But I think also the worst thing that could happen today as a result of this study is that we would all go home in awe of the beauty of this poetic passage and completely miss the down-to-earth application in our day-to-day lives. There is a danger to look at this passage with admiration. In German, we call it the Hohelied der Liebe, the song of songs of love. But then we just leave it on the shelf of our lives and not actually really take it as a mirror to look into and to just live it out in our day-to-day lives. Paul in this chapter doesn't even try to comprehensively define what this love is. He just lists some very practical aspects of this divine attribute, how love is being lived out by people who are inflamed by God's divine love. The last two sermons were about chapter 12, about spiritual gifts. Pastor Steve and Jack preached about the body of Christ, with Christ as the head. And then he gives gifts to his body in order to build up the church that is his body. And some of these gifts are, you could say, more impressive. They are more on public display than others. Some of these spiritual gifts are also more valuable to build up the church than others. They maybe strengthen the believers in a more powerful way. That's why Paul can finally say, that's the transitional verse here between the two chapters in 1 Corinthians 13, 12 actually, sorry. But earnestly desire the higher gifts, the gifts that are more valuable, that even have more power to build up the body of Christ. So this implies there are more valuable gifts, but it also, what is so fascinating, implies that you can actually eagerly desire to be equipped with more gifts. It means that this gift set that you have been given at the time of regeneration is not a static package, but as you humbly and faithfully just serve within the capacity that you have been given, God may even actually extend your capacity to serve his church in a powerful way. He may add some powerful and valuable tools to your equipment. But the problem that we are dealing throughout this letter is that many people, it seems, in the church, they were zeroing in on these just more spectacular gifts that find a public display on stage, that are more maybe obvious in the church, not in the background. And many just served out of selfish purposes. Their motives were just dead wrong. They wanted to impress and to dominate in the church. And many of these people were status-hungry, ambitious people. Their focus was completely on themselves and on their own interests, not that of others. So I find it beautiful. It seems to me how how Paul here in this transitional verse then, as he starts to dig into love, what love is, he uses, I think, some irony here. He confronts the reality in their church life actually by introducing first some fine irony when he says, "And I will show you a still more excellent way." Yeah. Remember, Corinth was like a magnet in the Roman Empire. It was drawing highly ambitious people to that city, people who would climb up the social ladder more quickly than in any other city in the empire, maybe. And this desire to just show off, to constantly compete, that didn't stop after people haven't become members in the church and the Christian community. So many were just constantly comparing themselves with others, sensing, I'm in a competition with this person and this person in the body, always wondering how they could impress the church with their unique gifts and their qualities. They really thought that they were the most important actors in serving and building up the church. And they always thought in terms of these highly specialized and more spectacular gifts in the church, when in effect, I would say the oil that keeps the machinery running in the church, that's the simple love. That's the love between brother and sister. That's the oil that keeps the machine running smoothly and that builds up the church. And they completely miss that point by focusing on these more spectacular gifts. It is as if Paul's saying, shouldn't you know this? The most obvious thing in the life of a believer. Have I not been, Paul, your role model when I was with you in Corinth as somebody who lived out love? Is this not the main characteristic love of someone who wants to follow the example of Christ? Isn't Christianity called the way? It's actually a lifestyle, the way of Jesus. It's a way to live by love. And to the Corinthians in this chapter 13, I think Paul wants to give them an honest look in the mirror. This is how love looks like in real life, not as a lofty idea, not as poetry. Look in this mirror and then see how much you still lack of the character of Christ. Maybe you are aware, you know this moment when you are having a haircut and then the barber finally takes this mirror, moves around, and it takes enormous strength for me to look into the mirror when he moves around my head. It would be so easy to live in an illusion, but then you have to realize I don't have as much hair there anymore as when I was 20. So, and I think it's the same principle here. We look at this chapter like one more time, and it functions like a mirror, and we should be bold to recognize how we compare actually to the perfect standard of Christ. And there's so much more that we need to grow into when we want to be people who love one another. You don't have to be special or in any way stand out in the group, in the church, in order to love, in order to, by your love, build up others in the church. All that you need is love. And in a different maybe metaphor, you could say in this chapter, Paul is giving this functional church that is almost in a mode of self-destruct, it seems. The medicine that would cure most of the diseases that were spreading within this body, this organism of the church. And the medicine is love. The most obvious, the most simple to apply love, just following the example of Jesus. Let's pray before we dig into this great chapter. Yeah, Lord, this is such a magnificent chapter, and we marvel at the way that Paul was able to put this love into human words. And these words are challenging, God, and so often we want to maintain the illusion of being a good Christian, but we ask that you would open our eyes to how much we need to be transformed to have the same love that Jesus had modeled for us. But also help us not to be discouraged, but help us to sense that you loved us first. That's the reason why we are able to love others as a fruit of your Spirit. So Lord, please open our eyes and give us understanding of your word. Amen. Yeah, the first principle we learn in this chapter, I would say, it's not about in the church about to impress others or to more and more possess stuff for ourselves, reputation, applause. The less we crave that to impress and to possess, the less I would say we live up to our calling as a human being. Paul says here, if I speak in tongues of man and of angels, but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, quoting Jesus here, but have not love, I'm nothing. If I give away all that I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Yeah, love is not only the perfect way to live, it is also the perfect way to build up the church, the body of Christ. So Paul first addresses this service that comes out of selfish ambition, self-interest. It's kind of an abuse of these divine spiritual gifts for our own purposes, our own benefits, not the benefits of the body. So without love, Paul says, makes very clear, there's actually no benefit for me. I may be a busybody, I may be very impressive, but there's actually no benefit left. He actually says, I'm nothing. I'm not even something, a little bit, I'm nothing. And he starts with a spiritual gift that was most treasured, it seems, in this church, is the gift of speaking in other foreign tongues. He says, I'm just a noisy gong. I'm just creating a hollow sound that is irritating, annoying. I don't serve anyone with creating that noise. Outwardly, maybe I'm worshiping in foreign tongues in a spectacular way, but actually I'm just seeking myself in worshiping God. I just want to benefit myself by demonstrating my great gift. If I have all knowledge, if I'm really Bible answer man in every men's meeting or Bible study, ask Martin. If I have the most amazing theology, system of theology, but I lack love, then I'm nothing. Really nothing. And less than dust, I'm nothing. And I gain nothing. Maybe it helps some persons, but I have no benefit at all in this. So it's not that the spiritual gifts as such are nothing, but the person who is using them without love. We see our motives matter so much. Love is always giving away. It doesn't focus on what we can get out of it. It's just a mode of always giving away what you already have by God's grace. And the lack of love in the church is not just a flaw that we can overlook. It really undermines the most fundamental nature, I would say, of our relationships in this body of Christ. It's like a cancer destroying the body from within, a lack of love. We move on here to the second point. I think often in our culture, in any culture, I would say, we use the term love, and we don't use it the way the New Testament uses love. It's always a distorted version of the divine love that has its origin in God. There's so much talk about love in Hollywood movies between people in the media, but it's actually mainly a selfish love that just pops up and then disappears at some point. So it's really crucial, even for Paul here in this culture, to describe what love, divine love, really is. He says, in very simple words, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. This agape love, the divine love, is so foreign to us as sinful people. It's not part of our sinful, fallen nature. Most people today speak about love, as I said, about in a romantic way, maybe. It's a romantic feeling that suddenly appears and then at some point disappears again. And Paul does not describe love here in a lofty language. It's very much down to earth. This is how we live out this divine attribute of love. The essence of love, we see, is action, to do something. It's not a feeling at all. It's just to do something because you love someone else. And he begins with two positive aspects, only two positive aspects in his description here. Simple traits: being patient, being kind. Being patient is kind of the opposite of I'm done with you. Yeah, I'm fed up. Sorry. Let's move on with this relationship, from this relationship. Being kind, I would say, always trying to be winsome, to overlook things, to create space for reconciliation, to move on, to improve and deepen our relationship. And I recognize really kindness, patience. To do this, I need to build some margin into my life. I just recognize on the way to church, if you're always stressed, always running after some appointments, there's no margin, and it's very likely you won't be kind and you won't be patient. So guys, let's build in some margin into our lives, that we are not running late, that we actually have time for a little chat, for someone we meet on the subway or on the sidewalk. We need these margins. And then he uses 8 negative descriptions of what love not is. Interesting. Compare the 2 aspects with the 8 negative ones. Love does not envy. We're not in the rivalry mode. It's constantly comparing ourselves, constantly feeling we're in a competition with others in the church. We are team players. We look for the success of the whole team. It's not a competition. We want to accomplish God's mission, but accomplish it together, not just being the star and standing out in a team. Love does not boast. We're not always screaming, look at me, I'm somebody, I'm special. No, we don't have to do that. We don't boast. Love is not arrogant. The word means to be puffed up. Today we speak of inflated egos. Yeah, it's all about me. It has to go my way. I'm the one who knows best how we should move forward. Arrogance in our relationships. And the church finally just provides a platform for this attitude of arrogance, being puffed up. Fourth, love is not rude. Yeah, and maybe he relates here to their behavior at the Lord's Supper. People just eating, drinking before others have arrived, looking down on the poorer ones in the congregation. They could eat the leftovers. That's just rude. Maybe you thought about these women without the head covering, just I don't care what other people in the church think about this. I don't care. I have this freedom. Just rude. Love does not insist on its own way, does not abuse power. Once heard about abuse of power in the church, and there was an elder, there was a discussion about purchasing a new communion set, and there were just different tastes and styles, and the elder finally donated then a communion set to the church in order to get his wish done. It's a form of abuse of power. It's a form of, I want to have it my way. And I declare it to be a donation, but it's just insisting on my own way. Love is not irritable. Yeah, we think of Peter quoting When we quote Peter, when Jesus was reviled, he did not revile in return. That's our role model. We don't get irritated. We don't have to explode in our anger when we look at Jesus who endured all this. Love is not resentful. It's kind of accounting language here. Love does not do accounting on all wrongs that have been done against me. We act basically as if nothing has happened. It doesn't mean that we whitewash everything or gloss over everything. It's knowing when to address the truth sometimes and when to just shut up, I would say. Love does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Yeah? And that's, I think, when the English language was lacking a word for this phenomenon and imported a German word, Schadenfreude. And that's a wonderful word. And it describes really a part of our human psyche. It's this twisted way of raising our own sense of self-worth and dignity as a person. It's a symptom, actually, of our insecurity, that we are not sure about our self-worth, and we just only build ourselves up at the expense of others. We would maybe say, have you heard about Sister so-and-so? Always so holy. Wow, but look at her now, yeah? That's the sense of, wow, I need this assurance for myself by looking down on the misery, the failure of someone else in the church. And it's just the opposite of love. It's disgusting, but we all do it because we all have this need of finding assurance. Yeah, we have some worth. We're not as bad as this person or these people. That's part of our humanity, of our psyche, but it's the opposite of love, and it destroys. It's that we should rejoice. We should celebrate the victories of others. And then we come to I would say it's a centerpiece of this passage, maybe in a way summarizes the verses before, verse 7. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. You can say love can handle all situations in life with the right attitude and response. Love will not give in to the temptation to just pull the plug in this relationship. And today, probably most marriages are divorced with the reason of irreconcilable differences. And usually it's just a non-willingness to bear, to endure, to hang in there. Maybe we think sometimes in relationships, if there will ever be a change, it will be slow and painful, a path with many setbacks. I don't want that. But love is so much more than just being nice or having a romantic feeling that then suddenly disappears. And we see love and life on this earth always goes hand in hand with pain, bearing, enduring a degree of uncertainty. How long will it actually ever change in this relationship? But believing all things doesn't mean that somebody just naively accepts everything as true. I think believing all things means always counting on God's promises, always believing that God will intervene at some point, show up, believing in God's ultimate goodness to restore things, to heal things, believing in his unlimited ability to turn things finally around. So love is able to hope against all odds. Nobody is a hopeless case if God is part of that equation. Love bears and endures all things that tempt us to exit certain relationships. Love finds maybe words that point people to the truth in their lives, but always with a desire to restore them, never to belittle their value as a person. It is important how we use our words. And I had to think about the Apostle Peter here in this context of the love chapter after he had forsaken Jesus and even denied vehemently to know him. In Luke 22:61 situation, Jesus was arrested. He is in the high priest's courtyard, and the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord, how he had said to him, before the rooster crows, today you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. What a moment. I'm not sure if there's a painting showing that moment when Jesus looks right into the eyes of Peter after he had denied 3 times to even know him. But Jesus appeared in a special way to Peter after his resurrection, and then had this conversation at the Lake of Galilee later. And we get a sense there was still much that needed to be restored in this relationship between Peter and Jesus. Peter was a broken person. But let's just imagine for a moment that the conversation between Jesus and Peter would have gone like this. So here we are, Peter, the guy with the biggest mouth of all. Huh? I thought that one day you would be the rock, but obviously you have proven me wrong. I knew it. Under pressure you would crumble. Haven't I told you so before? To be honest, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. You messed up big time, buddy. You completely failed me. When I needed you the most, you deserted me. You violated my trust in you. What a really bad example for the rest of this team here. Yeah, in my greatest battle, you couldn't even pray with me for 1 hour. Was it that hard? You added so much disappointment and pain when I was already suffering so much. Peter, when I looked at you in the high priest's courtyard, something changed forever. I'm not sure if I will ever be able to forgive you. Pretty common remarks, I would say, that you would probably often hear in some families and some relationships with sinful and selfish people like us. It's like each word is like a stab with a knife. No? Nothing that builds up, that binds the wounds, only words that tear down. And did you recognize it's me-centered words? You did this to me. Now I have to feel like this. No, I'm not sure. Everything is me-centered. It's not keeping in mind the hurt, the pain, the brokenness of the other party. So, and these words are even mixed with words that devalue the person as a human being. There's no, in this sense, no bearing. There's no believing. There's no hoping, no enduring. Chapter closed. And fortunately, this is not how Jesus spoke with Peter, you know that, because he saw that he was already broken. And I think he already received Christ's forgiveness, but everything was a little bit in limbo still. And John 21:15, then, when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. Peter had learned this hard lesson about himself. I think he had received the Lord's forgiveness. He had learned to love the Lord even more than before. And to love Jesus was really all that was necessary to go on. I want to ask each one of us, is the love that we have for Jesus the driving engine, the driving force for our service in the church? Or is it selfish ambition to some degree? Or is it the love for Jesus? How much he has forgiven us and put us in a place of service. Interestingly, Paul doesn't say anything here how we can actually grow in our love. Because we see love as a gift from God. It is rooted in God himself. It's nothing that our flesh can produce. It's a fruit of the Holy Spirit. And we can grow in love as we daily, I would say, pray for the gift of love, that God would let the fruit of love grow more in us from his fountains from which love flows that are in God, not in us. It's also, we grow in love, I would say, when we try to see things with the perspective of the other person. I was reminded of this with my mom. She has more and more signs of dementia. And I see how it adds to the insecurity in her life, how it adds frustration that she jumps from one point to the next without finishing her thought. And I just have to, I need patience with her, to imagine how would I feel in this situation. I'm losing control over my life. I'm frustrated about myself. And this helps me to love her, and this helps me to be kind and patient with her. It's the love of Jesus that inflames our love for others, that fuels our love for him and other people. It's really about living and loving in light of the gospel, that he loved us first and that he poured out his love into our hearts by his Holy Spirit. Final passage here, and this is really a lesson that we should invest in things that are eternal, that are not temporary. When he says, verse 8 following, love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is love. Yeah, these spectacular gifts, speaking in tongues, prophesying, they were highly valuable gifts in the church. But we learn they belong to this age, not to the age to come, when the perfect will have arrived. They have all temporary and partial character. We won't need them anymore in the perfect. We learn that love has its origin in God and is the divine life. And as God lives forever, so also love will live forever. Isn't that beautiful? No one can take love, remove love, because God, the eternal God who is love, is the fountain of love, and love will reign forever. And we want to invest ourselves in this love that will abide, remain, love that will dominate that age to come in his kingdom. But we are still in this age, and he uses two different pictures here. The picture of a child. It's like we have a glimpse, maybe an idea of something. You play to be a pilot or something. I remember the times in the museum with my son Matthew. It was a very inexpensive, great place when it was raining to go to the museum. Für Verkehr und Technik here, they had these steam engines, and was one we could climb up and get on the steam engine, this locomotive, and imagine to be like this locomotive driver, and you could move some crank handle, some levers, and have a sense, man, and this powerful machine. But the pressure was still zero. There was nothing going on. Nothing was moving, but it was just, you get a little sense of what it's like to be in this powerful thing that is under immense pressure and just moving forward on the track. But it's how our life on this earth is. We get a little sense of how it's going to be in heaven when we are just on this powerful locomotive, just in eternity, living with Jesus, moving forward. So it's okay to be a child on this earth. It's a natural part of growing up. Nobody can bypass this life on earth here. But then we will see Jesus face to face. We will see him and know him as he already knows us completely, something that we cannot imagine, only to a certain degree. I want to end here. Love is not only the medicine, I would say, that cures all diseases in churches that deal with division, competition, rivalry, arrogance, rudeness, all these things. It's not only the medicine, it also attracts those that are actually outside of the community of the saints. The famous quote from the church father Tertullian, "See how they love one another." And he's writing an apology in the midst of this pagan Roman culture. And he contrasts the pagans, how they would live their relationships with the Christians and how their relationships. And Tertullian here, he wrote, "It is mainly the deeds of a love so noble that lead many to put a brand upon us. See how they love one another." Quoting the pagans here, they say, "For they themselves, the pagans, are animated by mutual hatred." Another quote here, "How they are ready even to die for one another," they say, "for they themselves will sooner put to death." What a beautiful, it's maybe a bit exaggerated, but may it be more and more like this, that people outside of God's church would see the difference, how we demonstrate love, how we are even willing to lay down our lives for the brothers and sisters in the church. And I think just in our time today, as evangelical Christians, we have to be so much reminded of this truth when for many today, evangelical Christian means it's a self-righteous, arrogant person full of hatred toward others. People that are just against everything. May we be known as people who are for something, for so much. The only way to live, the perfect way to live by love. May this really be the way to follow Jesus every day of our lives. I want to pray, and then we will sing one final song today. Let's pray. Lord, we sense again our lack of love. We sense how much we are dominated by insecurity often, moments when we need this assurance of self-worth, when we have not really grasped your infinite love for us, that we have become children of God, not because we are worthy, but because of what you have done for us, Lord. We ask that you would live in us, that your Holy Spirit would produce this fruit of love in us. Help us to be kind and patient, and to endure and to believe and hope, God. And we ask that we would, even today, in concrete situations, be an encouragement to someone, to be kind and patient. Lord, give us your spirit for this. Amen.